up on 1 a.m. here on the East Coast, and boy, what a night it has been in keeping with this entire election. Unusual, surprising, something no one would have predicted just a day ago. Donald Trump, 26 votes away from the White House. He's got 244 electoral votes right now, 215 for Hillary Clinton, and he's leading Jonathan Karl in most of the states out there on that board right now.
He sure is, and the key ones are these industrial states in the Midwest and Pennsylvania. If you take a look, let's start in the East with Pennsylvania. 48, 49%, 95% of the vote in, and Donald Trump is winning in Pennsylvania.
That was, just to underscore here, that was considered safe territory by the Clinton campaign from the very beginning. They put some time in there at the end, but did not spend a lot of money at all. They consider that part of their safe blue firewall.
Absolutely. It's a state, again, that has not gone Republican since 1988. The Clinton team did campaign hard there in the final days, though. Barack Obama campaigned in Pennsylvania. They had their final rally in Pennsylvania with Bruce Springsteen, the Clintons, the Obama. So Pennsylvania is a place they did put some effort in at the very end, which may have been a sign that they were worried about it, more worried than we realized. Michigan. Again, Donald Trump still has a lead, now just 77% reporting, so there's still a fair amount outstanding, but Donald Trump continues to lead in Michigan. And in the state of Wisconsin, here, this enduring lead, 85% of the vote in, and Donald Trump has a 3-point lead over Hillary Clinton in Wisconsin, a state that I would say might have been even more improbable for a Trump victory than Pennsylvania. Minnesota is the one bright spot.
Let's sit on that for a while, because again, to underscore this, Donald Trump did not win the state of Wisconsin in the primaries. He had the Republican establishment in that state against him. As you have pointed out, some of them came around, but the governor, Scott Walker, was against him. Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, was against him. He had this talk radio network in the state against him as well. He was incredibly unpopular during the primaries, yet ahead right now.
Yeah, and at the very end, Paul Ryan, who had refused to campaign with Donald Trump, offered to campaign with him when he saw that Trump was doing an event in Wisconsin in the final stretch, and Trump canceled the trip to Wisconsin.
Went to Minnesota instead.
This may be the state that puts him over the top.
Matthew Dowd.
I just can't, I mean, the historical, unprecedented, I mean, we've said that word unprecedented from the very beginning, right? And I actually thought I said Donald Trump would win the Republican primary based upon data. And then I said Donald Trump would lose the general election based upon data. Well, the data was wrong in the second half of that equation so far. And even if Hillary Clinton pulls out a close victory in the final hours of this and all of this, something went majorly off in all of the expectations everybody on both sides had.
And I think it had to be more than secret Trump voters, people who wouldn't say they were voting for Trump. I didn't find very much of that. I didn't find really anybody who wouldn't say, I'm voting for Trump. I mean, there were a couple of people who didn't tell me who they were voting for, but a lot of them were college-educated women. You know, who knows if they were the secret Trump support. But I really, there is something else going on here that the data is missing, that the polls are missing.
We have that late deciders, which is something we haven't looked at yet tonight. This was kind of interesting about deciding. When did you decide? Last few days, last week? Many decided much earlier, but when you break it down to, did you decide last week? And if you decided in the last few days, Trump edged out Hillary Clinton on that, and that will fuel arguments that perhaps the FBI director's announcement affected the final days of this race.
Okay, we are coming up on 1 a.m. Eastern. One state still voting. Donald Trump just 26 electoral votes away from the White House. Hillary Clinton has a small pass. She's not giving up. We're not ready to call anything. The latest results coming up.
Back live in Times Square after this.
Tomorrow, it is 1 a.m. in the East, 10 p.m. in the West, and we have an amazing election night going on right now. Donald Trump now has 244 electoral votes, 244 of the he needs to become the 45th president of the United States. Hillary Clinton now has 215. You see the states that are still out there right now. The polls just closed in Alaska. We don't have enough vote in to call that one yet, to project that one. 3 electoral votes in Alaska, but the most consequential states out there right now. And let's just go through them one by one and see exactly where the vote is right now, starting with the state of New Hampshire. Let's take a look at the state of New Hampshire. Put that up. And we're going to show where the votes are in the state of New Hampshire. Well, there's the state of Wisconsin. Donald Trump holding on to a 3-point lead there in the state of Wisconsin. In the state of Nevada, we've called that for Hillary Clinton. John Carl, let's bring up the other contested states right now: Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Wisconsin, and Michigan.
Let's look at every single one of them. First of all, if you're at New Hampshire, Donald Trump has Hillary Clinton now has a slight lead in the state of New Hampshire. So, Glimmer, only 4 electoral votes. She has a slight lead. That's the first lead of the night we have seen in New Hampshire. Pennsylvania, Donald Trump, with 96% now in, has a almost 50,000 vote lead over Hillary Clinton. The state of Michigan, Donald Trump continues to have a lead with 77% in, about 59,000 vote lead. The state of Wisconsin, Donald Trump continues to lead, 87% reporting he's got a 3-point lead. Out west, in the state of Arizona, where Democrats had hoped for an upset victory, Donald Trump has a solid 3-point lead.
Well, and that's important, because let's go back to your possibilities right now. Let's move over to the state of Arizona, where he has a healthy lead right now, over to Donald Trump. That means he has to win only one of the other big states up there on the board.
That means he can win Wisconsin, gets him right to 270. It means he can win Michigan, puts him well over 270. Pennsylvania puts him even further over 270. And by the way, I haven't mentioned that little district up in Maine, too. It's actually big geographically, but only 1 electoral vote. He's way ahead in Maine, too, as well.
So he's likely to get that electoral vote, but he's got a lot of possibilities right now as we come up, and it's been such a surprising evening in so many ways. And Matthew Jod, you were talking about this just before we left. In some ways, an entire industry blindsided.
Yeah, I think a country blindsided, an industry and a country blindsided. But as I say, let's just look at the expanse of it. This is from almost every single media association who did their own polling. There weren't in some conspiracy. They did their own polling, converged on a 3 or 4 point lead. The Clinton campaign did their own polling. They were confident they were going to win this election. The Trump campaign did some semblance of polling. They were not confident they were going to win this election. And then every single state poll out there in cumulation effect. And so I think that we're going to be asking a lot of questions for the days that following us. How was this missed? I actually think this is a bigger miss than the Brexit. A much bigger miss, because there was
it's a broader country.
There were way more polls done in this race going up to this, and a way more sense of what was going on in the country, and the arguments were clear. So I think this is the biggest miss the world has seen.
And you know who didn't believe those polls? Donald Trump's voters. They went out there, they listened to him say this is not over. They didn't listen to us. They didn't listen to anybody else about the polls. They went out and voted.
Clinton campaign hoping it's not over yet. I want to go to Cecilia Vega, who's gone over to the Javits Center now. Give us some sense of the scene there.
George, I got one word for you: bewilderment. These people in this room in here look completely shell-shocked. I just got in here, but on my way in, there were people who looked like they had come from a party and they were walking out to an event that's not yet over. There are questions in this room right now. People don't know what's going on. They don't know if they're waiting for a concession speech. They don't know. They're hoping they're waiting for a victory speech. I've seen one gentleman standing right here next to me. You can't see him off camera, who's got a paper Hillary Clinton mask on top of his head. You know, this was supposed to be the party. And let me just end by saying, George, I am standing underneath this glass ceiling, the symbolism that the campaign went to book this arena here under a giant glass ceiling, that at this point, I think a lot of people in here are wondering if, in fact, it will actually be shattered tonight.
Radio silence from Clinton High Command, Cecilia?
Complete radio silence, George. But to go back to what we were talking about earlier, we are hearing from top Democrats in the party. We are hearing from Clinton campaign donors, big donors, who say this race is over.
Okay. And Stephanie Cutter, let me bring this back to you. As I was saying earlier this evening, you worked for President Obama in his campaigns. You worked for President Obama in the White House. I don't want you to read minds too much, but try and take us inside the White House at this point. You know, John Carl brought up that tweet from David Plouffe, who of course ran President Obama's campaigns. He was as certain as anyone could be over the course of this campaign that Hillary Clinton was going to win. All the data, as Matt Dowd on the Clinton side suggested a win because they had multiple passes. It sure seemed like President Obama believed in these final days this was going to be a victory as well.
Well, I think we all got it wrong. And it would be good for the Democratic Party to take some time and look at what happened. And maybe we weren't listening well enough to those voters. She clearly didn't perform as well as she needed to with African Americans, Hispanics, even women, despite having a historic gender gap. and he overperformed with white men. So we have to understand what happened here. And also understand that white men used to be at least part of our coalition, if not the winning part of our coalition. They were part of the coalition, but we've completely lost them here.
Stephanie Rawlings-Blake, and I'll go to Bill Kristol in a second. One of the other things that has been talked about is, you saw in the primaries Bernie Sanders come kind of out of nowhere as well to give Hillary Clinton a real fight for that nomination, but a lot of hollowing out at the Democratic Party, you aside as a mayor of Baltimore, at lower levels.
This has been, to Stephanie's point, just troubling, and to Byron's point, we're very confused because the numbers were just so wrong, just all across the country. I was in Florida stumping for Hillary Clinton. I saw people that were coming out to the polls. They wanted to make sure their votes were in the bank for Hillary Clinton. There were good numbers that we were seeing. I don't know if there was some overconfidence in the Democratic voters, but we definitely have a lot of regrouping to do as a party.
And Bill Kristol, Donald Trump was talked about many times during the primaries that perhaps this was a hostile takeover of the Republican Party, maybe now on the verge of winning after that hostile takeover.
Yeah, and I think Matthew Dowd made the point, but just to amplify it, I mean, this is really extraordinary. We've not had a president like Donald Trump, who wasn't either a general or formerly an elected official or a cabinet officer, I guess, Herbert Hoover. We haven't had the upset in the Republican Party was pretty striking. The Republicans normally nominate the next in line, a well-respected, established governor or senator or former vice president or something, or son of a former president. So then to win an upset like this, I think we're all going to be underestimating for a while the impact of this. Yeah. You don't have a surprise of this magnitude, a historic anomaly of this magnitude, and then everything goes back to normal, and Paul Ryan's the Speaker of the House, and they're bargaining on an infrastructure deal. I don't buy that. I mean, I don't know that Paul Ryan will be Speaker of the House. I don't think it'll be business as usual. I hope Donald Trump reaches across the aisle and reaches across the country, because it's a very divided country. Whichever one of them won, Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump would have to do that. I hope that there's a message of unity, but the governance, what he chooses to do, he doesn't agree with Paul Ryan on entitlement reform, the heart of the congressional Republican agenda. He's got a very different view of immigration, of trade. I mean, is he really going to go ahead with the trade policies he's talked about? We are in we're in more uncharted waters than we even think, I guess is what I would say going forward.
One thing it makes you think, though, is that President Obama's personal popularity is separate from where he has left the nation, and that this was a rejection of continuity. President Obama said it at the convention, Hillary Clinton is continuity. He campaigned for her strongly, and voters, I think, sent a very powerful message there. But as far as uncharted waters, this isn't left-right anymore. This is old new. Big old dumb top-down Washington and government has failed this country. That's the verdict. And so we're going to roll a hand grenade under Washington's door and blow it all up. That, I think, is part of the big message tonight.
What people were saying was, we hate those charted waters. We know where that chart goes, and it's not working for me. Yep. And so what they want is so ironic in a way, because what Trump kept saying, at least about African Americans, if not directly to them, was, what do you have to lose? Well, they felt there was a lot to lose, and close to 90% of them voted for Hillary Clinton. But Trump voters thought, that's exactly right. What do I have to lose?
I guess this is the question I'm confused about, or trying to puzzle over at this point, like everyone else at this point. So I think your reading of that is exactly right. They vote and they say, what do we have to lose? And I guess my question is, I'll bring this to Tom first and then Terry, what are they going to get? What is Donald Trump going to do for these voters who have now put their faith in him?
Well, I mean, he said he's going to attack those trade deals. He wants to tear up NAFTA. He said he's going to tax companies who try to take jobs out of America. Of course, these were all campaign promises. Will he really be able to do this? We don't know. But he may have a Republican House. He may have a Republican Senate. And, we haven't really mentioned this yet, but the Supreme Court. I mean, all those evangelical voters, Donald Trump really didn't prove to anyone that he was a bigger Christian or that he loved God more than the other of his rivals. Of course, he said that 2 Corinthians, and we saw the Bible come out in Iowa and South Carolina. We didn't see it again. but he convinced those people and he got their vote because of the Supreme Court.
Only 8 seats on the Supreme Court right now. Merrick Garland, perhaps the man nominated by Barack Obama, one of the biggest losers of tonight as well, if Donald Trump does go on to win. But to pick up on the point that Tom was just making, Tara Moran, as again in your role as chief foreign correspondent, says he's going to tear up trade deals, says he's going to renegotiate the terms of NATO. Has been quite critical of the operation in Mosul right now with the Iraqi coalition and the Iran deal. How does the world react?
In shock, and they better fasten their seatbelts. Donald Trump has not only taken over and revolutionized the Republican Party and revolutionized presidential campaigning, he's about to take over the United States in this personalized, charismatic power. And he's going to redefine the terms of the United States' role in the world, and I have no doubt that he would do it. The president is in office with a great deal of power for a person who knows how to pick it up and use it. And if there's one thing he's demonstrated, he's that guy.
And we're looking at Trump headquarters right there. I want to bring this back to Martha Raddatz. Of course, you questioned Donald Trump closely on this during the debates, but right now we have American troops on battlefields in Afghanistan and Iraq. Fewer than before, but still there.
Yes, we do. And Donald Trump, I questioned about what he would do in Syria, his understanding of military policy and civilian-military divide. I don't know that he really has a plan for what he's going to do there. He has General Mike Flynn. General Mike Flynn has been with him. He'll quickly tell you he has 200 admirals and generals backing him. I think Mike Flynn has been a huge influence on him. I was also looking back and at an interview Tim Kaine gave. Tim Kaine has a son in the Marine Corps. He was asked by John Dickerson, so if Donald Trump is democratically elected and your son is serving as a Marine, you wouldn't trust his life under that commander-in-chief? And Kaine said, I wouldn't. That's a pretty extraordinary thing to say if you have a son in the Marine Corps and that you don't trust the commander-in-chief. The people in the military defend the Constitution.
Let's go back and look at where we are right now. Let's take one more look at these key states as the votes continue to trickle in. Again, start with New Hampshire.
I've been looking, so New Hampshire, Hillary Clinton seems to have a lead that she's maintaining with 85% in, but of course New Hampshire is
not enough.
Only 4 electoral votes. Go down in Pennsylvania, 20 electoral votes, solidly Democrat for a long time, and Donald Trump continues to have a lead, a considerable lead, with 97% reporting. Go out further west to Michigan. Donald Trump continues to have a lead, although it has narrowed some, 81% reporting. Wisconsin, this is the one that could put Donald Trump over the top. 87% reporting, George, and Donald Trump has a 3 percentage point lead.
Needs to win only one of those 3 states. Just for the sake of it, let's also look at Minnesota right now as we keep an eye on the Trump headquarters in New York, Hilton right now.
Yeah, so Minnesota,
that's Clinton.
Hillary Clinton does have a lead. It's a 3-point lead. I should also point out that's also a lot narrower than I think a lot of people thought. The idea that Minnesota is even close is something that was not anticipated at all.
George, I want to go back to, I think it's the first time I really met Donald Trump last year at the Iowa State Fair. He was really just coming on the scene in a very big way. Flew that helicopter in with Trump on the side. These nice, lovely people at the Iowa State Fair could not get enough of him. I mean, we were walking around the Iowa State Fair basically seeing if anyone supported Hillary Clinton there and really couldn't find anybody. And Donald Trump, you know, bringing kids on his helicopter, again, the Manhattan billionaire with the working class there in Iowa and charming them.
Hey, I grew up in upstate New York, and you go home and you see Trump pen signs everywhere. And I think it goes back to this Bernie Sanders comparison we made earlier in the evening, which is both of these candidates, though, on varying degrees of the political spectrum, had a message for the working class in this country. You know, when they say make America great again, they were talking about opportunity for people who might be a high school graduate, who might not have had the opportunity to go to college or not been able to afford college, which is a huge issue in this country. And they spoke and had a message that resonated with people who said, I want the opportunity too. I should not be held back because I didn't have the opportunity that others had. And I think that, you know, like I mentioned earlier, Bernie Sanders might cringe at the notion that some of his supporters went to Donald Trump, but it was something Sanders tapped into and Trump tapped into, and I think there'll be an autopsy within the Democratic Party about whether or not Hillary Clinton was successful in getting that message across,
George,
that she could do something for them too.
I'm just looking back on some old interviews. This is from Bucks County, right around Philadelphia, just northeast of Philadelphia. An Obama voter that I interviewed, I said, have you ever voted Republican? He said, I have not, but I am this year. I'm voting for Trump this year. And why are you voting for Trump? I don't trust Hillary at all. She wanted to be a politician her whole career. So staying in a marriage for that is something that bothered me a little bit, I think. Does anything bother you about Donald Trump? Well, you know what? They're both horrible. I don't know who to pick, but they're both horrible. I'm going with Trump, and I think he will pick an amazing cabinet because he wants to win.
Not ready to find out just yet. We're not ready to call this. Donald Trump has 244 electoral votes. But I want to go outside to TJ Holmes here in Times Square. Tell us about the crowd, what you're seeing, what you're hearing out there.
Well, you guys have been talking about being shocked and confused and surprised about the evening. Same sentiment out here in Times Square where we have thousands of people gathered around. But something I've never heard before is quiet. It has been quiet in Times Square this evening as the results have popped up on the screen behind me. It's been overwhelmingly a pro-Hillary crowd, but they have been shocked at the results, and I've never heard Times Square go quiet before. We've set up this Facebook booth here, and people can come in, and then this Instagram Oval Office, have their picture taken. Well, what you see right now is an empty booth and an empty Instagram Oval Office because nobody's in the mood to be having a good time and having fun out here because these Hillary supporters, again, pro-Hillary crowd, they have been in absolute shock, and the place has gone quiet. We come through here Monday through, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, Times Square. You hear some noise. You're not hearing much of anything. Isla is just one of the Hillary supporters.
Yes,
Isla, hello to you, dear lady. Now, you have a smile on your face now.
I do.
What's been happening?
I mean, considering the fact that Florida was Republican, I'm very disappointed, but it's not shocking. I live in Boca Raton, which is very for Trump.
Are you holding out hope at this point?
To be honest, I don't know. It kind of seems like a lost cause. It sucks, and I don't want to say that, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. Isla, thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you so much. That's kind of the sentiment. And again, don't know if you want me to go ahead and go back to you, George, but if you want to hear from some more voters, you're certainly welcome to. But mostly, you can't find a lot of Trump folks out here. There are a couple here and there in the crowd, but they're certainly hiding, had been very vocal, got a little more vocal as some of these votes started coming in. And you hear, and let me go ahead and toss it back into you right now, George. But the place has gone quiet this evening, something I never thought you'd hear about Times Square on an election night.
That is a different kind of Times Square right now. We're still waiting for some crucial battleground results to come in. Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, they could decide our next president. Donald Trump only 26 electoral votes away from the White House. We're live here in Times Square and across the country with the campaigns as well. We'll be right back. We are back now, coming up on 1:30 in the East Coast, 10:30 p.m. on the West Coast, and Donald Trump is coming up on those 270 electoral votes he needs. He has 244 right now to 215 for Hillary Clinton. He is also leading in a lot of the states you see right there still in gray. He is ahead right now in the state of Wisconsin. He is ahead right now close in the state of Michigan, ahead right now and close in the state of Pennsylvania. We also have some news out of the state of Pennsylvania. Senator's race there. The Republican, Senator Pat Toomey, has won, defeating Democrat Katie McGinty right there, 49-47 right there. Pat Toomey played a cagey game with his support of Donald Trump and his opposition to Donald Trump over the course of this campaign. He prevailed, got the victory.
He didn't even reveal who he was going to vote for until the very end. He finally said he was going to vote for Donald Trump. But you have to look at this day for the Republican Party, because the Republican Party, outside of what happened with Donald Trump, is having an unbelievable day. They're holding on to the House, losing very few seats in the House in a year where they thought they would lose many more. Look at these Senate races. They are winning Indiana. They've won Indiana. They've won Florida. They've won Wisconsin, and one that most Republicans had frankly written off. Now they've won Pennsylvania. New Hampshire is very close. Kelly Ayotte may win in New Hampshire, and Roy Blunt is ahead in Missouri. Republicans are going to keep control of the Senate. The question is, that Bill Kristol raised, is what does the Republican Party stand for? Because these Republican senators ran on a very different agenda than Donald Trump's.
I would add to that, I think the Democratic Party needs to have the exact same conversation. I go along with what Stephanie was saying is when they face this election, they're going to, if this continues and the trend gets, Donald Trump's elected president, the Republicans take over the United States Senate, and Republicans suffer very few losses. Everybody thought it was the end of the Republican Party 30 days ago, 60 days ago. Well, the Democratic Party needs to take a long look in the mirror and realize 34% of the electorate, a larger share than the non-white share of the vote in this, 34% white males rejected the Democratic Party in almost the same proportion as non-whites.
It's one of the things we saw, but David Mears, you're also seeing that Hillary Clinton did underperform what she needed to do with non-whites as well.
Yeah, and I think our control room has the numbers here. It was the effort to get non-whites, and we're talking Hispanic voters, African-American voters, and take a look. This is on the far right what President Obama did in 2008, then 2012, and look what she did tonight, at least so far into the evening. 10 points she lost to what Obama was able to perform in 2012, just 4 years ago. And Donald Trump did much better. Look, he gained 11 points there with non-white voters across this country.
Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake is the story of tonight. We're still waiting on Detroit. We're still waiting on Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and these final votes coming out of those big states. But is one of the stories tonight going to be that African Americans that came out in record numbers for Barack Obama did not have that same enthusiasm for Hillary Clinton?
I don't think anyone had the expectation that African Americans would have the same level of enthusiasm as they would for the first African American president. But what I hope the story of tonight is where our country goes from now. There's there's a big difference between fighting to win and being a leader. When you're a candidate, it's great to have a winning strategy, a logo, a baseball hat, but I don't think anybody up here that's a supporter of Trump or a Republican can say one thing, one policy that he'll actually do to keep any of the promises that he's made. Not one thing. You don't know how he's going to fix the trade deals. You don't know. He's certainly not going to build the wall. How is he going to bring jobs back? Nobody can say what those policies are. So I hope that story is a story that gets filled in.
That is going to be a big challenge for him if indeed he does become the next president of the United States. Still 26 electoral votes short of what he needs right now, 244 to 215 for Hillary Clinton. We'll be right back.
Remember 2000?
Welcome back to ABC News. Election Night 2016. Here again, George Stephanopoulos.
1:30 here in the East Coast, 10:30 in the West. Donald Trump, 244 electoral votes. Hillary Clinton, 215 electoral votes. A lot of states still out there, those states in the gray right there. And let's take through them one at a time and show you where things stand right now again. Donald Trump needs 26 electoral votes to win. There's the state of Minnesota. Hillary Clinton holding on to a 2-point lead right now. Don't have enough votes in to project that yet. State of Michigan. See it right there. Donald Trump holding on to the lead right there, about 70,000 votes, 16 electoral votes. Donald Trump leading in the state of Michigan. State of New Hampshire right now, only 4 electoral votes. Hillary Clinton has pulled back into the lead there by about 4,000 votes. State of Pennsylvania, this is a big one, 20 electoral votes. And you see right there, Donald Trump ahead, 49 to 48. That would get him just about there. 220 electoral votes in the state of Pennsylvania alone. And you see him right there, up by about 60,000 votes. And Tom Llamas, take us inside the Trump High Command right now.
All right, George, here's what we have. They're still very excited, and now they are growing impatient. They want the networks and the news organizations to call this election for Donald Trump. We're hearing that from multiple sources. So there is a little bit of frustration now because they feel they have won this race. That being said, Donald Trump got a very good sign, a very promising sign just a few minutes ago. Mary Bruce, who covers Capitol Hill for us, says that Speaker Paul Ryan called up Donald Trump and they had a very good conversation. The speaker congratulated Donald Trump on his big night, and he also spoke with his good friend, Governor Mike Pence.
Spoke with Mike Pence. Let me go to Mary Bruce. Do we have Mary Bruce? She's in Janesville, Wisconsin. Right now, Mary Bruce, you've been covering Congress for us for a while right now, covered Speaker Ryan up close. What do you think is going through his mind right now? I guess we lost Mary Bruce. I'm going to bring... Oh, she is. She's back there right now. Hope you heard the question right there.
Pretty interesting.
Go ahead.
Ryan did have that conversation with Donald Trump, reaching out. Paul Ryan's camp will only say that it was a good conversation. This is clearly a warming up that we are seeing. Remember, Donald Trump and Paul Ryan have had this very contentious relationship throughout this election. We have seen Paul Ryan over the last few days even coming out saying you'd be willing to campaign with Donald Trump. That event never actually ended up happening. You've heard Paul Ryan even on the stump in recent days saying Donald Trump's name, the T word, something that he was very reluctant to do throughout much of this campaign. He took the Voldemort approach, the he who shall not be named tactic, when referring to the top of his own party's ticket. Now you're seeing Paul Ryan making these overtures to Donald Trump. Clearly, I think this is very much the beginning of a healing process that you're going to see going forward, assuming that Donald Trump does, in fact, win the presidency.
Healing process with John Carr. You've covered Capitol Hill as well, and one of the things I'm thinking of, we know that Paul Ryan had a distaste for a lot of the language we saw from Donald Trump out on the campaign trail. He was against the Muslim ban. He is very strongly for free trade agreements, including the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is on the agenda right now. I can't see him leading the effort to undo NAFTA or other trade deals.
No. And if you look at virtually every major issue, Paul Ryan stands opposed to Donald Trump. It's not just trade, it's also entitlement reform, which is the issue that brought Paul Ryan to power. It's also international affairs. Paul Ryan is more of a favors a more internationalist, aggressive U.S. foreign policy. That is not Donald Trump. They disagree across the board. It's hard for me to imagine them working on
with a couple of big exceptions, and I wonder, perhaps on social issues, they could probably agree on the Supreme Court. And Cokie Roberts, of course, you covered Capitol Hill as well. One thing I think they definitely agree on, repealing Obamacare and replacing it with something else. They clearly agree on an agenda of more tax cuts to promote economic growth.
Absolutely, and Paul Ryan has this whole better way that he talks about, of a whole host of legislation that he wants to see done. And I'm not sure that Donald Trump is going to oppose him on any of that. I think the one place where they could have an argument is over spending, and that is over the question of infrastructure. And look, think about that. First of all, we actually do have a crumbling infrastructure. Trump is right about that, saying our airports are terrible. And this is a way you actually could hire some of these people who are complaining about being out of work. You don't need a college degree to work to build some roads and to build some airports and some train stations and some schools and some hospitals. And so that might be a place where Trump can deliver to this group of people that he's talking about, and the Republicans in Congress might just have to swallow hard and add to the deficit.
You'll get some Democratic votes for that.
Absolutely, lots of Democratic votes.
Tom, you've been out on the trail with Donald Trump again and again and again, and we know the signature issues he talked about, the Muslim ban, the trade deals. He did also keep on promising, hitting this hard, especially in the last couple of months, this idea that in his first few weeks in office, he would move to get rid of Obamacare completely.
Incredibly, and we really haven't talked about that tonight, George, but he hammered home those premiums that were rising in the final weeks of this campaign. And every time he mentioned that, every state he would go to, the numbers would get higher and higher, and the crowds would cheer when he would say he was going to repeal Obamacare. And that also appealed, in reality, also to some small business owners who Obamacare affected as well.
Let's go over to Amy Robach. She's over at the New York Hilton, where the Trump people getting ready to celebrate. They're hoping for that. Tonight, Amy, what do you got?
Yeah, well, there are a lot of impatient people here who are very ready for this race to be called, and one of them is standing right here with me. Susan Fabiano, you supported Trump. Are you surprised at all by tonight's results?
Not at all.
Not even a little bit?
Not even a little bit.
You thought this was going to happen. Why do you think the pollsters got it so wrong?
Because I think it's very similar to when Reagan was elected. There's a silent majority out there that is afraid to express their opinions. They're going to vote with what their brain and their heart says.
That hidden vote we heard Trump talking so much about, he said tonight was going to be Brexit times 50.
Yes.
It looks like he may have been correct on that. Tell me what you're feeling here tonight, standing here in this room.
This has been so exciting just to be in the room, seeing everybody. Everybody is so positive and very upbeat, and there's so much energy in the room. So it's been great.
This has been a very negative campaign, though. We have a very divided America. A lot of people question, you see the signs in here, women for Trump, but clearly that's been an issue with Trump. There's been a big gender gap in who came out to vote for whom. Why, as a woman, did you support Donald Trump?
because at least I believe in what his policies are. I believe in what he says. Do I believe in the way he says everything? Not really. But I don't believe in Clinton at all. She proved that she was, pretty much disreputable. She's been in the government 30 years. She's made a lot of money off being in the government, and there's something wrong with that. You make it in the private sector, I'm happy for you.
Was it a vote more against Hillary rather than a vote for Trump?
No, I like what he says. I have 4 grandchildren, and I want to make sure that they grow up in a country that is safe and gives them all the economic possibilities that I had when I was growing up.
Are you hoping that we see a different Donald Trump in the presidency, if that's in fact what happens in terms of how he speaks to minorities, to women, or about those groups in general?
Absolutely. I would like to see that change. But again, I want to see what he's going to do. I already know what the Democrats are going to do. I want to see what he's going to do.
Are you going to go to bed tonight?
Not until they call it.
Any predictions? Seeing how you knew this was going to happen tonight, do you think we'll know before we go to sleep this evening?
I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure Michigan's going to put him over.
All right, you heard it here, George. Susan says Michigan is going for Trump.
Okay, Amy Robach, thanks very much. And Tom Yamas, we're also hearing from Trump's campaign manager.
That's right, Kellyanne Conway taking somewhat of a victory lap right now. She tweeted this out: things that were true. Undercover Trump vote. Mike Pence for VP. Hillary's floor and ceiling are the same. And finally, rally crowds matter, and we expanded the map. In many ways, she's very true.
Congratulations also coming in at Donald Trump from overseas, Terry Moran.
Yes, indeed. The high fives are happening at the Kremlin. There's no question about it, because Vladimir Putin is a big winner here, and it will remain an open and perhaps unanswered question just how much the Russian government was mucking around in this election. But there's no question Putin and Putin's Russia have a freer hand in Ukraine and in Eastern Europe, and he is a person who has tried to sow this notion of the restoration of nationalism. 27 years ago today, the Berlin Wall fell, opening an era of walls and borders being much more porous and shrinking Russian power. And today, the guy who's going to build a wall, he says, won.
And Martha Raddatz, the leader of the French National Front, Marine Le Pen, congratulating Donald Trump, saying congratulations to the new president of the United States, Donald Trump, and the free American people.
Oh, yeah, he's going to get some congratulations from there. We were just over in France talking to French politicians about Donald Trump, and there's some support, just like here. There is support over there. But I think when you look at the world and we wake up tomorrow, there's going to be a lot of reaction from around the world, and what this means for everybody, what it means for Asia Pacific, what it means for the war. I mean, is he going to pull troops out? And the other thing, George, I don't think any of us really know.
Well, that's the thing. That's exactly the point I just wanted to get to right there. And Tom Yamas, I'll bring this to you first and then open it up as well. We know that Donald Trump started to get security briefings when he got the nomination. We know he received the security briefing, the same security briefing that Hillary Clinton received, the conclusion of 17 of our national security agencies that Russia was behind this attack, this hack of the emails. Yet he went out during your debates on the stump day after day after day after day and said, I just don't believe it.
Not only did he say that, George, he said, quote, I love WikiLeaks. And he would say that over and over again, and it wasn't a problem, and his crowds loved it. Even when people like Senator Marco Rubio said it wasn't a good idea that that Republicans were promoting this. And he was even asked in a news conference, Donald Trump, if it gave him pause, and it didn't. And he encouraged the hacking at one point. He later said he was just joking, but he did actually say that. And we haven't really talked about WikiLeaks, but when Donald Trump put the label on Hillary Clinton of Crooked Hillary, and then the WikiLeaks come out, and those embarrassing emails for the Clinton campaign showed some voters, wait a minute, maybe he's got a point. Maybe they believe that.
But he was talking about 17 intelligence agencies, professionals. These are career people in intelligence agencies who I know all through that were shocked that he would say something like that, and tonight are probably wondering what their future is as well.
He also said he knows more than the generals who organized this offensive in Mosul right now, in Iraq.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's a very critical time. He said the generals were reduced to rubble, but then I think he came back and said it's the civilians, it's not the military.
But take a step back. I mean, you know, Martha, I mean, the intelligence agencies, how could they be wrong? How could well, the intelligence agencies told us we had weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. The generals, how could we disrespect the Iraq war became so incredibly unpopular.
And we said that to him that night. We said that in the debate. Absolutely, the intelligence agencies have been wrong in the past.
And this gets to
a
bigger point. And of course, we're still waiting for those results to come in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania. But Charlie, let me bring you in on this because it's something we've talked about a bit tonight. American people skeptical of everyone. They are skeptical of intelligence agencies. They are skeptical of business leaders. They are skeptical of the press. They are skeptical of politicians, leaders in Washington. This is a repudiation of all of it.
It certainly is. One of the most popular things in his campaign rallies were to whip it on the press. You still have some of the marks.
Every single day.
But, you know, I've been silent, George, because I'm gobsmacked. I think the way everybody is. And what really brings me up short is we don't know. We have no idea what waters we're in. We're in uncharted waters because he really hasn't given much signal as to what he will do. I mean, he says, I'm going to cure this and I'm going to cure that, but he never tells us necessarily how he's going to do it. And Bill, bless your heart, Bill, you think he might come out with a conciliatory statement. But every time he has spoken, it is all about him. You know, it is about me. That's basically what it comes down to when he gives a speech. And I have a feeling that he's going to take this very personally and not be very conciliatory. And that worries me. And the other thing, George, words matter. All of us, I think, believe words matter. And when you start your campaign calling Mexican immigrants rapists and murderers, and then you insult Hispanics, you tell you're going to deport 11. He says he started out saying he was going to deport all 11 million. He got 29% of the Hispanic vote in this country. That's just amazing to me. And needless to say, his comments about women and his support amongst women stronger than we expected. We're in uncharted waters. We're just straight in uncharted waters.
Gave you some information on the...
You know, just to Charlie's point here, this is pretty telling, Charlie. You know, if you break down that question about the comments that were made on that Access Hollywood bus, Trump voters, among Trump voters, they were asked, Trump's treatment of women, does it bother you? Those words, do they bother you? And the majority of Trump voters, 54%, said not much, not at all. And I think it's going to be a discussion in some households, moms and dads, with their children. After those comments were made, there were so many ads. We saw that Hillary Clinton ad play over and over again in the battleground with Trump's comments and the children listening and watching, and what parents will say on this day after. Now, 54% say it doesn't matter that much.
The people I talked to just a few days ago said exactly that. They didn't care. That was in his past. He's going forward. That's something.
But it's interesting. You know, Tom Yamas told us that Donald Trump went upstairs in Trump Tower to talk to Melania Trump. We saw her go to suburban Philadelphia in the final days of this campaign. A lot of people said, what was that speech? But she went and spoke about cutting down on bullying for precisely this reason, to try to get at this, that among the criticisms of Donald Trump is what he's done on Twitter, these comments made about women, and that perhaps was the first sign that they're aware they have to do some healing on that front.
George, I think we have a sense of what a potential Trump White House would look like, and I was just thinking about this, because here's a guy that can't stand professionals. Right? He started his campaign basically running against the professionals. Jeb Bush had the most professional campaign operation put in place. Jeb Bush got 4 delegates and spent $110 million. He built a tanker ship. He goes into the general election against the next tanker ship, built by Hillary Clinton. The most massive infrastructure, all of the staff, campaign headquarters. They had 50 times more headquarters than them. They outspent Donald Trump, I think, 5-1 in this. She won all 3 debates. She won the convention. And he is about to win this race. He is a Somali pirate, and this is a time of large tanker ships. And Donald Trump's going to go into the White House thinking, those professionals don't know what they're doing. I just did this.
Well, I think that's right, but I think you also have to say that people voted for him. It's not just him. There are millions of Americans who voted for Donald Trump. And this country does rest on the consent of the governed. And these You might disagree with them, but these are voters who have voted for Donald Trump, and they believe it's not just about him. They believe it's about them. And I think that we have to keep that very firmly in mind.
And that's why I keep coming back to. That's why I keep coming back. I think you're exactly right. I think the question is, what is he going to do for them?
And George, on that point, as I look around our panel, I think there's a lot of confusion because people are asking, what happened tonight? I've been with Donald Trump for 500 days. My question is, what happens tomorrow? And I really don't think anybody on this planet but Donald Trump knows what he's going to do. He is the master of the head fake. He'll say he'll do one thing and he'll do something else. He'll make a promise and he'll go back on it. And if he does have the Senate, and if he does have the House, and he's the president, like I said earlier, he can do whatever he wants to do, and we just don't know until he starts in office.
Okay.
Yeah.
He will not govern. I mean, governing is a serious business. You can't say, oh, I'll just promise one thing one day, one the next day. I'll tell the Asian allies this, the trade deal that. I mean, I hate to sound like a, establishment, sober, boring. It is like kind of important to get some of these policies right. There is kind of a world order out there that has not failed for 70 years and that has brought an awful lot of people out of poverty. And this country hasn't failed. And this country hasn't failed so much either. You know what I mean? A lot of good things have happened over the last 30, 40 years. Wait a second, let's just finish this. And if Trump can change, Charlie's the only person who's ever accused me of being too nice to Trump. I mean, I'm hoping he changes. If he has the attitude that I fooled everyone in the primaries, I fooled everyone in the general election, I'm just going to keep doing this for 4 years, I think that would be very bad for this country. It is a deeply divided country. He's not going to win a majority of the popular vote. If he has the attitude that I won, I'm just going to keep on winning the way I've won, I just think it will not work and it will end up badly.
Bill, but he also said at one point, I can fix this country in one term. I may not have to run for re-election. That's the mindset he has going in.
Cities in a week. That's what he said.
Alex, go ahead.
Remember the Donald Trump you saw in Mexico standing next to the Mexican president? Remember the Donald Trump you saw after he won Florida, very conciliatory? And Martha, your point that this is not just an American phenomenon. No. We think it's a Trump victory. It's a global phenomenon. Everywhere, people think those guys who think they're better than us aren't doing that great a job. They've failed us, whether it's Marie Le Pen, whether it's Brexit, whether it's here in the United States. So the first thing he has to do is make disruption safe, because actually government is a problem. It isn't working very well. It's time to get a lot of money and power out of Washington back into people's hands. If he can help the Republican Party or even the Democrat become agents of change, he'll succeed.
You're talking about this globally. In other countries, the Trump movement would have its own party, right? In France, you have Marine Le Pen's party. In Germany, you have Alternative for Germany. You have a separate populist party. Here, what Donald Trump's got to do, winning sure does heal a lot of wounds. We had been talking prior to tonight about how broken the Republican Party is into these fractures. Is there going to be a civil war? How much does winning heal some of those wounds? And how much is there still pressure from the center-right or the conservative, the ideological part of the party to go to Donald Trump and say, you've never run as a particularly ideologically conservative candidate, but now that you're president, we expect you to govern.
We got to take a break. He can give them something right at the beginning, particularly if he has a Republican Senate, and that's what it's looking like right now, and that is a Supreme Court pick. That'll be one of the first orders of business if and when he takes office. 26 electoral votes away right now. That's what Donald Trump needs to win the White House. All eyes on Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. We're live with the latest results when we come back.